And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of RecruitMilitary Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts covering all things military transition, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much, much more. My name is Lucas Conley, a retired U.S. Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to share with you the ins and outs of navigating the turbulent waters of civilian employment. If you're in search of meaningful employment, well, you've arrived at the right place. Don't touch that mouse. Please visit us at rmvets.com/live to learn more. All right, let's roll in. Are you a job seeker looking to take your resume from good to great? Well, you're in the right place. Today's topic is 6 ways to take your resume from good to great, and we've got a fantastic guest on the show to help us get there. Our guest today is a man of many talents. In addition to being a professional resume writer, an interview coach, and a professional networking consultant, he has appeared in film in both big and small screen projects 48 times. And I can assure you none of them was on an episode of Cops. Now, while this show won't appear on his IMDb page, I'm happy to say that he'll be joining us on screen for the 49th time. His company, MJW Careers, has been helping clients draft world-class resumes to create attention-grabbing social media profiles and to prepare for winning resumes for more than 13 years. His LinkedIn feed is littered with thank you notes and success stories from his clients. He's joined us in the past, and we're glad to have him back on the show, a genuine subject matter expert, Mr. Matt Warzel. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Lucas. How's everybody doing today? Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I can't say that I could complain. People wouldn't listen even if I did.
And not to hype me up my acting career too much. I like how you always pepper that in. I appreciate it. Somebody's got to be branding me somewhere.
Hey, whatever it takes. And I'll only take 10% off the top of the gross of your next film.
Perfect. I'll talk to my agent.
I'm easy like that. All right, folks out there, now that you know who we are, we'd like to hear who you are. Where are you from? Who are you with? Who are you serving with? Are you a veteran? Are you a transitioning service member or a mil-spouse? A caregiver, a reservist, National Guardsman, or some other combination of situations there that we haven't even thought of. Feel free to jump into the chat with your questions, your comments, your concerns. Time allowing, we'll get after it. Now, Matt, in your line of work, you've probably seen, conservatively, thousands of resumes. And I bet they range from absolutely horrible to completely stellar. But at a certain point in time, you find that middle band of a good resumes. Today, we really want to get after what makes a good resume great, what really captures your eye. It says, you know what, this is a world-class candidate. One of the first things I've heard from folks like yourself is organization. Have that resume strategically organized for the reader. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Having been a recruiter for almost 10 years and currently a career coach, resume writer for the last 13 years, coming across a bunch of resumes, we do innately inherit a thing that we call 6-second eye test. And everyone's heard this. It's everywhere, but it lives and breathes with people that are busy, looking at resumes consistently, and needs to be able to vet folks on the fly, right? Because if they looked for 2 minutes at every resume they got for every application, and bear in mind, most of these people are recruiting multiple positions at once.
Yep.
There would be zero time in the day to do any proper sourcing, and you would get caught up and you would never meet any requisitions. So, we got to start, picking it up a little, right? So when you look at a resume, there are layouts, there are ways that they are presented to you that you immediately will go, okay, this passes a 6-second eye test. Now I'm going to give them, I should say gift them, because that's what these recruiters are pretty much doing, is gifting you 2 minutes to then read actual content. So you want essentially your layout to kind of cross off their mental checks. And so mental check boxes. So essentially, and I'm just going to be brief here, but the layout,
sure,
real quick, that, as far as what a proper good layout should be, keep it super simple. I always say, contact, right? And all the contact. Don't hide anything. If a recruiter needs to find you, they'll want 3 numbers if they could get it. So number, email, website, LinkedIn, you should be good there. If you have multiple numbers, a landline and a mobile, put them both. Trust me, recruiters who like people that they're interested in speaking with will attack you any way they can. Also, after that, summary. Make it a key value offering statement. It's not supposed to be this, oh, I'm 10 years of experience doing these 5 skills in these 2 industries, and I'm really articulate. That's kind of the old way. What I've seen in the recent years, good resume writers are truly putting this together as a sales pitch now. It's almost like an elevator pitch, right? So the summary should speak to what their specific pain points are and how you're the problem solver and the proverbial Tylenol for those pains and why they should keep reading. So if you hook them in with the idea that you're talking to them and not about you, but you're talking to them and telling them, hey, I'm the troubleshooter, I'm the fixer you need to talk to.
I'm your solution.
Yes, that's what they want. Okay, so having intention with that summary is key. Then skills. With skills, think about it like this. Recruiters have 1,000 resumes. They got to sift it down to 100. They're going to use words, right? They're online. So think of the words they're going to use. Look at the job description. That's gold. That's where you can reverse engineer some of those words into it's so long as you're not fibbing, into the resume. Yeah. Technical aptitude is nice because that's very niche. So any sort of software, and then any kind of methodologies you're aware of. So if you have some sort of, a sales approach, if you're a salesperson, or, like a sales strategy, like spin sales or something, or if you're, just maybe a Lean Six Sigma kind of person, lean manufacturing type stuff, you're aware of methodologies and processes. Get those things on there that separates you. But you want to A, play the keyword game for the recruiters, and then B, play the keyword game for the hiring team so they see that you're in the same sandbox. That's the goal with skills too, is they see skills and they go, this isn't Lucas with his entire skills history built in right here where I get to pick and choose which ones will work. No, this is Lucas with just 10 skills that relate to just this role he's going after. Then the meat and potatoes, which is going to be the accomplishments and experience. I always tell people, and we can kind of get into this later, but I always tell people is have intention with that. Every line should count, like a screenplay.
Yep.
Not to keep referencing Hollywood, but every line should count, right? Because it's like you said, you've seen real bad ones and good ones. And when they're bad, I mean, we're talking 1/2 sentence of, work the tow motor in the warehouse. And like, that's what they'll write, somebody will just write that line. And it's like, guys, you're not selling yourself. Like, and not only that, hiring managers know what a forklift driver is, or whatever your title is, assuming those responsibilities that go with it. So that's going to be focused mainly with the content. Once you get past the look, now we got to focus on the content and make sure it's relevant to what you're doing.
Hey, here's a methodology that someone introduced me to lately, and I want to hear your feedback. They told me, take the resume, fold it in half, like so, because that's about 6 seconds right there.
Right.
And you're marketing yourself in that 6 second period. You're marketing your fold. Anything above the fold that's your 6 to 8 seconds. And then if you're lucky, they'll read the rest. That makes sense to you?
It's spot on. And it's funny. That is essentially how I do resume updates for clients, other than if I have to actually add a job. But if I got a client who wants a sales job and a marketing job, and we determine that it'd be best to not blend those two, that's essentially what I am updating for that second resume. You're just taking the whole top half and changing that to a different message, whereas the experience most likely will stay the same, except maybe you swap out a few accomplishments that may relate to marketing or sales to marketing to sales. But most of the time, you don't have to mess with the experience that much, depending on exactly how, what that person can bring. Everyone's different. But that first fold, though, that is exactly where I want to see. And I hate to say it because recruiters, this is a bad habit, but we all kind of fell into this hole as a recruiter. But recruiting on the title is essentially your like first way into like finding people, because it's, if I'm looking for production supervisor, you put quote production supervisor end quote, and you're going to have production supervisors show up. So, that's the easy way. And I get it. We all kind of have done that. And we still, it's, best practices. It's one of the ways you do. But that's what I want to see. If I'm looking for an operations manager, I don't want the top header saying sales and marketing professional and then litter it with sales and marketing, right? So that's that 6 seconds. That person's spot on. That top half is exactly what is going to be looked at first, unless they're a completely odd bird and they decide they're going to start from the back and go forward, which there are a few people that do it. So,
all right. Hey, great question here from Robert Buckold. How many sentences in the summary max? That's pretty straightforward. What do you think?
I would say, if you can get 3 and make them real impactful, I've gone up to 5, but again, this chunk should not be much more than, we'll say, maybe 3 to 5 lines is kind of the look. So if you can, even if your sentences, and make sure they're properly laid out, don't be, kind of quirky and be like, I'm just going to do half sentences and make it kind of feel like I'm, doing a sale.
Bunch of semicolons in there.
Yeah. Keep function, put the sentence as a function of how it would be in the proper grammatical statement. But so keep that linear like that. But if you see 3 to 5 lines as far as a chunk, that's good. No more than that. and really less is not going to get you much sales ability.
Yeah.
So I say 3 to 5.
Yeah, I'd agree. And, having screened resumes in the past, if it's longer than that, I'm just not going to read it.
No, it's just too much. Start breaking that stuff out into the resume itself if it gets like that.
All right, fantastic. I think we hit some great points there. All right. Now, I've also been told that a great resume is targeted. So now you're going to tell me that sending out 200 resumes to 200 different employers and 200 different opportunities and playing the odds, you saying that doesn't work?
No, absolutely not. There are circumstances it will, right? Because there are numbers games out there. But if you are chancing your job hunt, which again correlates to your ability to generate income, which correlates to your livelihood, and probably a lot of things that go with that, including happiness and time spent with family, etc. All this is important. This isn't like one of these things where the pool liner. I'll try this guy. He seemed to be the cheapest. The pool liner. You lose a couple grand. Okay, we all have had bad investments in that kind of sense of hiring people. But when it comes to your career, I mean, this is where you should put the most extreme focus and utmost importance into what you're trying to present to the world as far as your brand, and get them to understand you have intention and have a focus and you have a purpose, and this is it. This is your purpose. Whatever. I hate to keep saying the title, but let's just do it to save sanity. This is your title that you really have the most value to offer, what you want to do. So put that as your niche focused resume. Don't make it generic. Hey, I can do operations. I can do sales. I can do marketing, advertising, continuous improvement. I get it, but have multiple resumes then, because those audiences, right? The audiences expect an ideal candidate to have just that one niche focus. If you're a jack of all trades, Jill of all trades, it may work in the circles of like mom and pop shops trying to hire a head person to lead the entire, like an operator to do all these facets. Fine. There you can Wild West it and get a bunch of stuff jammed in because they're expecting that. But most 9 out of 10 times you're going after something very specific. Niche that resume down and have that focus. The general stuff, this is why I always tell people, the wider the net you cast and the more general you are, the less quality opportunities. The more niche and focused, the higher up chances you'll have of quality opportunities coming your way to be vetted for that you actually want to do, right? Because now we're all hanging out in the same playground together.
Yeah.
You're right. Everybody's together.
Plus, I just don't think you can keep track of all that. And I have literally just last week reached out to a candidate for a role I was looking to source. And I said, hey, this is Mr. Lucas Conley from RecruitMilitary calling about your application. And he says, who's this again? And I'm Lucas Conley. And he goes, and which company do you represent? I'm like, RecruitMilitary. And he goes, what role are we? Hey, man, if you don't remember my name and the name of my company, why am I talking to you?
Nope. Yeah. Have a tracker. I actually have one. If you email me and mention this show, I'll give you my tracker for free. Everyone have, you can get them online. They're very easy in Excel, but you are spot on. Treat this like a professional, like your job hunt is your professional kind of, career at the moment, right? During this transition, and act accordingly. Don't shotgun emails out to recruiters going, help me, I need work. And half-ass stuff, excuse my language, but that stuff drives me crazy. Communication matters. How people perceive you is going to matter. So don't come in hot, and don't come in complaining about managers. Don't come in complaining about, just you're not getting a fair shake because of the man or this or that. Everyone's going through crap. We're all trying to deal with it and get through. You're not anybody special with that. No offense. I mean, literally just pick yourself up by the bootstraps and start to strategize how you're going to present yourself to these people that are going to be very limited in focus, so you got to cut through, and then hopefully they'll actually bring you into the process of hiring, of being vetted and interviewing. But that it comes down to, and this is good because we kind of touched on this, but when I write my content, I put mine in 3 buckets. One is, what's the relatability? Look at the job description and reverse engineer from there.
Yes.
The qualities, the qualifications that are on there, but don't copy and paste it. They know what that stuff is. Don't be lazy and throw it a copy and paste. Find the 5-10 main responsibilities. Then weave those 5 or 10 main responsibilities into the sections, either accomplishments or experience, depending on where you did that. As long as you're not fibbing, again, rule number 1. But then you should, and then add a little onus, add a little touch of personality about why you accomplished that specific skill or achievement. With your own little tale, with your own little narrative. So then
personalize it.
Personalize. So it says, hey, hiring manager, Mr. and Mrs. Manager, not only can I do it, but I've done it. Proof's in the pudding. look at line number 2, and let's go over this in the interview. It's a very cause and effect, process-oriented statement. This should be very surface level. Here's what I did. Here was the outcome. And I tell people this, when you're presenting the resume to hiring managers, it's the full meal. They're eating it up. They're gobbling it up. They love it. They bring in for interview to find out about it. And that's where we talk about the ingredients. That's where we talk about all the details between the cause and effect.
Yeah, tell me about your dish.
Exactly. And so, because recruiters don't have time to read every single project, every single ins and outs of it. Just get to the point. And if it relates to that role, even better, because now you're tugging the right heartstrings. And again, same sandbox with those hiring teams. And then just to put a cap on that, though. So that's the first big bucket. What's the relatability stuff? The second bucket for content, think of operational. 200 million a year you generated, cut costs by 30%. You implemented a continuous improvement, and it's streamlined efficiency. Even if you don't have a percentage, which you should, because we're all keeping track in our brag books, right? We're all every day writing down exactly what happened that day that we were proud of, or was an achievement or a metric. If you're not, get going. And have that operational impact statements layered in where hey, if this job requires a lot of, cutting costs. Let me think of some cutting cost things I've done. And then even if you don't have the 30% number, just say cut costs because of this, right? Mm-hmm. Then you can just, again, expand upon what that project entailed, because they're caring about cost cutting in this role.
And I think that's important. You mentioned about keeping track of your accomplishments. And then I want to circle back to one other thing you talked about, because once you've left a company and you've been, and hopefully left on good terms, that's not really the time to call back a month later and be like, hey, remember that project we did back in April of 2022? What was our net savings? You really had to have that stuff written down if you're going to be prepared to use it. Now, absolutely. I really want to highlight, and I want to give an example, I think, of an exercise. You talked about ensuring that your resume is reflective of the requirements in the job statement, those KSAs, those expectations. And I want to share this with the audience. And this is something that I've heard referred to as a resume crosswalk. And just to kind of set the stage for you here, Matt, if you want to make a few comments, on the left-hand side is a job description. On the right-hand side is the resume. Can you see what's going on here?
I can, absolutely. I can't see the details, but I could see them, matching things up. Correct.
Yeah. So and just the methodology for those out there in the audience is literally, print this out. There's no shortcut to this. There's no fast way in my experience. Print the job description, put it on the table, print your resume, put it on the table, go line by line. And what you might not be able to see is up at the top there. And that first highlighted thing is there's a keyword or phrase. They've numbered it. And on the right-hand side, they've identified something that correlates with it, and they've numbered it, and they're going down like a checklist. And if there's a difference, if there's a delta, that could be something of a key talking point during an interview.
Absolutely. And moreover, with that, first off, that format, we got to get them out of the infographic format. Keep it linear. Those applicant tracking systems get finicky. But I will say, with that matching up, that's exactly the idea of reverse engineering. And it's not cheating, because again, if you're not fibbing, then you're just kind of getting helped along going, oh yeah, I forgot I did do that, or I did do this. Now, look at your resume, all those non-highlighted parts that we had in there still. So when you're writing a content, I write mine in the 3 buckets. I said 1, relatability; 2, operational impact, some numbers; 3 is anything unique. So awards, speeches, accolades, high profile clients, got in a newspaper, whatever. So if it doesn't fall in those 3 buckets, I tend to leave it off the resume. So go through that resume again, though, and see where all those non-highlighted parts are on your actual resume, and see, is that skill or task, or it should be an achievement, worth keeping on, right? Does it fall in those 3 buckets? Because if it doesn't, you may be able to find other areas from that job description to layer in. Now, let's say you don't have a specific skill that's required on the job description, but you have knowledge of it, though. That's something you can use in your arsenal. I've acquired knowledge of the complete project management life cycle, including requirements gathering, budgeting, etc. Now, that's not telling them you've spearheaded projects. It just says you acquire knowledge of understanding the process. So there's ways to kind of weave in more buzzwords without lying. And also, but as long as you do understand the process of, conceptualizing how stuff works, you can't, you had to have been in it somehow to understand it. But that's the kind of things you can do to start getting rid of the ones that aren't highlighted and start keeping more and more that will relate, or like I said, the other 2 buckets. So that's great, though. I love that comparison thing.
We've got a quick question here. It goes to SJ here. On your resume, if you're applying for a job requiring a minimum of 15 years experience and your total military is 25 plus, would you list only 15 to avoid ageism? I've heard both sides of this equation. What's your thought, Matt? Is ageism an issue?
Oh, always give yourself a fair shake. You don't know who's reading these things. And there's a lot of people that either wonky or, again, biased. So you really need to give your fair shake in the process, which would include, dumping some of the older stuff. 10 to 15 years is a good rule of thumb. I don't like to always just cut it off at 10. So 10 to 15 is fine, but let's figure out with that last 5 years, how much actually will be presented. Maybe it's just a couple lines under those jobs. The only caveat is if you're, in IT, you go to the military for the last 25 years and, IT was back with IBM prior to that or whatever, and you want to go back in the IT, that's the kind of stuff where you don't necessarily have to keep the dates of IBM on there, but you can get creative and put stuff like previous work history, IBM, you put previous work history prior to military, IBM, location, title, and don't put the dates, but then use some of that IBM stuff that is going to be relevant. Get it at the top. Get it in that accomplishment section. Get your skills layered in with that stuff you used to know and any upskilling things you have done since that relate to what you want to do. So get creative, but rule of thumb, 10, 15 years is for relevance sake.
One piece of advice someone has given me on something like this is once you get past the 12-year mark, switch to a functional or a combination resume. And then those years, those numbers that could be taken, as the candidate being too old, those are buried on the second page, and they've already seen in the functional areas in that combination resume a lot of accomplishments that they're looking for. They may not even pay too much attention to that timeline in the back.
Yeah, I'm very scarce when I do functional resumes. I be honest with you, I think I did one this year total. So I'm a big combinational guy. I don't even do chronological. I just do combinational. I love having accomplishments. All it is accomplishments before an experience. There's nothing else going on. And that's important to me. I want to have some nice, thought out, huge bang for your buck statements before the experience. And why not? Because if you're trying to showcase the best stuff, there you go. It ain't going to get lost in the experience. Now, as far as functional, though, there are some cases where, it's fine to, here's all these skills. And then the second page is, here's my work history with zero information underneath each job. Problem with that, those applicant tracking systems can sometimes get, again, caught up with that stuff. And then they're like, cannot compute and might kick you out or might get through, but then it kind of doesn't put it in the right spots or whatever. So it's nice to do combinational. Even if you have a shaky work history, there's ways to get creative by still having a chronological look, because again, to recruiters, they don't want to ask more questions than they need to. They don't want red flags and going, why is this functional? They expect to see something that's laid out a certain way. Help them help you.
All right. We got a lot of great questions in the chat today. We got one from Billy Bodford. What resume advice do you have for someone changing industries? Little to no hard skills in the new industry. Is there a way to stand out?
Well, again, you're grasping for straws. So first, it's the relatability stuff. Just start going down job descriptions of what you want to do, that new stuff. And I like the highlighting. I mean, whatever it takes, circle, but look at the skills that are required. Look at the ones that are preferred. And again, this is a lot of research when you're in a career transition. So this isn't one of these, like, I'm going to Google for an hour and I'm good. This could take a week. This could take a month. This could take a series of steps, because you choose to go out and get mentorship. You choose to go out and ping people to give you informational interviews. That's the stuff you should be doing. But let's just say if you don't want to talk to anybody yet, if you just want to kind of be at home and research first step, I would say, look at the job descriptions, multiple. I mean, we're talking, look at like 10 of them even. Find correlations. So, that's stuff that's really going to be mattering. Find the stuff that's kind of like one-off stuff, and then find the stuff that's like all very niche, where you're like, maybe I don't have to focus as much. Maybe it's proprietary stuff or whatever you don't have to really worry about. But break it down, 3 categories, and then where are you fitting within those skills? What do you have that relates? And again, you don't have to necessarily, if it's called something different, but you have the skill and it's kind of the same kind of work, but just called different, just adapt to whatever they're calling it.
And you know what someone told me with that is, look, if you see something and it says, okay, PMP certification required or Lean Six Sigma certification required, 5 years experience in production management required, try to get into an informational interview with someone who understands that industry and identify the KPOs, the key performance outcomes. What are the actual things they expect that MBA, that Lean Six Sigma, that CI, that project manager to do? And can you do those things despite the fact you don't have the certificate or the 5 years of experience, that express your ability to deliver, even if you don't have that pedigree?
Exactly. And when you talk to these people, more upskilling opportunities to find out, because they're going to tell you, you really need to go get this under your belt, et cetera, right? It's all about upskilling, improving your value, improving your worth. So go get those skills that you might be having gaps in. Meanwhile, trying to identify those correlation skills, those ones that are adaptive that you have actually done. And that's a great outlet. That there's one way to do it. Get some informational interviews and really find out what it does entail and how much stuff you actually probably already have and you have no idea that you did have. So yeah, don't get caught up in the jargon, because companies love calling things. What's the people experience officer and that kind of stuff just came around the last 5-10 years. Like, it's an HR person. Like, so, we're going to keep going. There is no turning back with titles. We're going to keep getting wonky as we get more into technology.
Yeah. When did a human resource director become an HR BP?
Yeah, all that kind of, yeah.
The first time I heard that term, I was like, what's an HR business partner? Are you starting a recruiting business? You have a business? Do they own 50% of the company, or am I misunderstanding something?
They want you to build the talent acquisition stuff all the way up. I got a buddy who does it, and it's like, oh my gosh, man, like, it's too wonky. I love HR, but they definitely they get carried with these names and these functions and stuff. It's like, okay, we'll go with it.
And we've got a pretty good question here from Mark Lucido. If you have a great pedigree in both experience and education, should education be above the fold? I hear this from IT folks where they're concerned that they're burying their certifications on the second page under education when maybe it should be up front.
Nah, recruiters, if you are an early career and all you're grasping for as far as relatability is like a lot of project work in school, or just internships you might have had, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I would put it education, because you're within maybe 3 to 5 years of being out of school, even like 3 years, I'd say, is a good cutoff. And then put it at the bottom. When I recruited, if I had to have someone who had to have a certain certification, it was one of my mandatory things. I'm going to open the resume and I'm going to go right down to the certifications and see if they got it. If they don't, I can move on. But I don't need it at the forefront and be like, oh, okay, good. I need to know what you can do for this role. All the little mandate stuff, they'll find those if they need to right away.
Yeah, and odds are they're not going to get past the ATS, or they're not going to get past the HR specialist in the front office who screened your resume before it got in.
Right, because they got to check off the mandate stuff first. And sometimes it says mandate or experience will work in place of mandated, kind of whatever. That's your sign of apply if you think you can be a fit, because they're giving leeway to some of those, credentials. Excuse me. So it's just a one-off thought, but yeah, always apply if they're saying we'll take experience too, if you have it.
All right, Matt, this has been a whirlwind. We've talked about being results oriented. We've talked about highlighting practical experience. We've talked about not generating 200 generic resumes. We've talked about strategic organization, and we've got just two more hits on our list of 6. And one of them is branding. You have to be branding yourself, and you talked about sales. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, that's going to be key right now with just the world we live in with social media, cutting through the noise. Eyeballs they got a lot more platforms to be on and a lot more busyness and interruption in our life. So keeping people, on point and focused is hard enough anymore. So your brand cannot be something that's kind of misconstrued or interpreted in different ways, because people just don't have the time. And I've actually, me personally, I feel like I have a brand, but I still get people who are like, oh, I thought you were a resume writer. You're just a career coach, or vice versa. And I'm like, where? I go, all my stuff says both, So even like you intentionally think you've got it down, there's still people interpret it differently. So make it easy for people to understand what you do and what you do well, so then they can pay you to do it. And that's kind of the goal, right? You're trying to convince people to say, hey, let me get some money and I'll do this stuff to make your life easier. And they're like, cool, we'll hire you. So if you want to be that person that they go, that's the guy I want to pay or girl I want to pay, because they're the brand that we need, or the persona that we need, they're gonna go with it, right? They're gonna feel good about it because you presented yourself as someone who is a quality assurance professional or whatever. So the more you again make it this all-encompassing, like, I'm a chef, I'm a poet, I'm a marketer, I'm an influencer, I'm an engineer.
I'm the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick.
Right. It's like those days are gone. Like that. Probably. I don't know work prior to almost where the brand. I kind of grew up in terms of my professional side when branding was kind of like getting going for personal brands, because we had internet when I was in high school. So, things were starting to already kick in. But prior to that, I didn't work in the 70s and 80s where, they said jack of all trades was a good thing. And back then, having multiple skills, no matter if they related or, like well-roundedness and all this, that stuff is like, no, everyone should have just a focus and then work towards that focus. And if you want to do the 3 different jobs, that's fine. But know your brand and which playgrounds you're putting those personas out there on. To put the poet where the poet people live, put the influencer where the influencers live, So have intention, but don't be afraid to have multiple brands. Just don't put them all together on one website.
Right. Be genuine, differentiate yourself from the crowd, communicate who you are as a total person, and tell them what you're great at. They don't need someone who's good at it. They need someone who's great at it.
Yeah, they're not mind readers. So help them help you. They're not even going to remember people that were a fit most of the time. I mean, some recruiters are very good at that. They recruit the candidate, not the open requisition, but majority of them recruit the open requisition. And so they might have talked to the guy or the girl, that was good 2 weeks ago, and they completely forgot about him. So you as that guy or girl that's like, man, I'm good for this role. Why am I not getting called? You need to tickle them. You need to call them back and say, that's why you just put a new posting up. Remember me? And then they're going to go, oh yeah. Cause look at us. How many people do you interact with a day? What's the new science? So like, you're not going to remember. So even if you made an impact, I remember there was a landscaper I had that did a bang up job. I can't remember which one it was. So it's like, so you just got it. They did a good job. You're not going to.
You're supposed to put the sign on the lawn that says J&J Landscape. You forgot the sign.
Yeah, that was my roofing guy after Hurricane Florence. It was like a part of the deal. I had to put this sign up.
He took a chunk off your roof. He painted his name on it. He put it on the lawn.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with that guy.
All right, of our list of 6, we've got one more hit item, and I think this is the most important one, and it's the most important piece because I think people they trust the system, they trust the ATS, they trust the application process. They sit down, they hit send, and they think that the world is going to unfold for them. Last but not least, number 6, a great resume, not just a good resume. A great resume is the one that gets in front of a hiring manager, that gets on that hiring manager's desk. Man, how do we make that happen?
So again, we kind of touched on this, but reverse engineering is your number one key because recruiters, I was a marketing major and I was a recruiter for automotive, aerospace, building control, financial services. I mean, I've recruited for so many different industries and types. Do you think I was an environmental engineer ever or had any idea what the heck that entails majority of the day? Like, I don't. But when I had an environmental engineer I had to find back when I worked at Aerotech, you use these job descriptions like gold because these are the hiring managers saying, here's what I need. And then you're going to go and try to find a person that cross off as many of those needs as possible. And then you're going to give them the hiring manager and say, hey, they checked off 8 of those 10 boxes. Let's bring this person in for the interview. So reverse engineering, because again, these people aren't there to become friends with you for lifelong. Maybe we have to get started, but they're not there to, maybe have you funnel them every week to see if you can sell them on your credentials. They have a job that they need to fill before they can go back to their work. And so filling this job's a pain in their butt. It's arduous. It's long-winded. It's expensive. And they hate doing it because sometimes they hire people and they become a bonehead and leave after a month and they got to do it again. So that's why vetting is very serious and they're very, they're very in tune with what they want because they've been through it before and they just don't want to keep doing. So help them help you, give them the goods they expect to see in a qualified candidate. So then they'll call you and say, hey, you look like you match pretty well. All comes down to that. Now with the hiring managers, here's like I said before, they're the only ones that are going to talk tech speak with you. And by tech speak, I mean your technical things, not so much software, but things you do on day to day that make you and your role, different from all the other roles out there. And so the hiring manager can talk to you about some of that scientific stuff that goes into your day to day, or even some of the technical aptitude. So keep it simple on the resume though, because the marketing major, who's a recruiter, the sourcer, any of them people that maybe probably aren't environmental engineers either, they need to know that you offer that value. And so again, keep it less is more on the resume, but then in interview, the hiring manager is ready for some tech talk. So have all your stuff together and what exactly every project entailed. And
of course, networking your way in the door.
Oh, number one, networking's before applying online. So you're in the applicant tracking system. I shouldn't say that.
Checking all the boxes.
Check all the boxes. That's one of them. Get online. But then moreover, step away and go, now who am I going to find at this company? And it's fun being a sleuth. Get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, all these things are there. Yeah, we're not in the 1970s with phone books. I mean, there is access.
Yeah, if you want to know who the regional hiring manager for Wells Fargo in the Northeast region is, you can find that individual on LinkedIn.
Probably that, or a Google sheet of a conference they went to.
Yeah, probably.
They got those littered online.
Matt, I wish we could do this all day. I swear, I'm just surprised that I get paid to have this much fun with people like you on live on LinkedIn. One last question.
Yeah.
Is this great? This is probably the best show I've done this week.
This is the best show probably all month.
All right. One last question. My favorite question. The last question I always ask of all my victims. Excuse me, of all my guests. One piece of advice, just one piece of advice. You have 30 seconds to tell a transitioning service member, mill spouse, or veteran job seeker. I almost forgot what my number third was. Whew. One piece of advice. 30 seconds to give it about how to take a good resume and make it great.
So I shouldn't say my one piece of advice is book spots back-to-back weeks with Lucas always, because it's just as fun the second week. I would say with resumes, so for military specifically, lessen the burden of the military speak. Unless you're going for, a federal or government contract role where maybe some of it can layer itself in. Help the poor marketing people that don't know any military stuff, help them out too, right? So process-oriented stuff, right? This machinist mate does this kind of work. Well, okay, over here it's called, what is that, electrician or HVAC? Or so, find what stuff you're doing and then what the private civilian side call it. And then start putting it in the resume like the civilian side calls it. If you're going for private sector,
nobody knows what a bosun's mate is.
Stuff like that, right? So lessen the tech talk, and by that I mean military speak on the resume. And if you need help with that, people like me, you folks over there at your firm, this is what we do, right? So reach out. There's plenty. You can go online. There's plenty of military websites now that like list what the civilian terms are called and stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it. Get the mill speak out of your resume. Nobody knows what a bosun's mate is. Love my Navy guys, but you have some really weird titles. And even if you've been in the mill, I still don't know what a bosun's mate is. I really don't. And somebody come into the show live, drop in the chat there what a bosun's mate is, and we'll all get smarter if we haven't been here today. Matt, if folks are looking, Matt, if folks want to reach out to you, whether it's for your services or just to say hi, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, and I will say, Gabby, that is correct. That is a good email there. But you want to check out jobstickers.com. It's like the old pot stickers we all love to eat. Job stickers. That takes you to my link tree, which has all the stuff that I can offer you, as well as subscription things I offer and everything. So come on over and see me. All
right, fantastic. Can't wait to do this again next week. Now I have something to look forward to. All right, all you folks out there that have joined us today, if you haven't already done so and you're looking for a meaningful career, head on over to www.recruitmilitary.com, where you're going to find over 400,000 job opportunities from 16,000 companies, coast to coast, around the corner and around the world. We're on a mission, helping veterans, transitioning service members, and mill spouses find meaningful employment opportunities. On behalf of Recruit Military and the folks that joined us, Matt, thanks for being here.
I'll see you next week, guys.
All right. And tune in next week when Matt will be with us to tell you how to take a good interview and make it into a great interview. Until then, thanks for joining us with Recruit Military Live. Good luck and Godspeed.